When you think of military power, what comes to mind? Fighter jets, right? Aircraft carriers. Well, what about the one thing that fuels every single soldier, sailor, and pilot? Today, we're going to dive into a critical and honestly an often overlooked element of strategic might, the absolutely massive task of feeding an army.
To really get our heads around this, let's just start with the numbers. The People's Liberation Army, that's China's military, has over 2 million active duty soldiers. 2 million. That makes it one of the largest standing armies on the planet.
Okay, so what does it take to keep a force that huge ready to go? Well, if you figure 3 meals a day, you're looking at a logistical need for more than 6 million meals every single day.
And if we zoom out and look at a full year, the number just becomes staggering, almost hard to comprehend. Over 2 billion meals. That's hundreds of thousands of tons of rice, meat, and vegetables, all managed by a system that's just as complex, and you could argue just as powerful as any weapon they have.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How do they do it? How does China possibly manage a food supply chain of this scale and turn what could be a huge vulnerability into a real strategic advantage? Well, let's break it down.
Let's kick things off on land, because that's where the vast majority of these soldiers are based. This is the foundation, the centralized backbone of the entire military food operation.
You see, the whole system is basically a giant state-run machine built for total control from top to bottom. It all starts with dedicated military farms that grow the staple crops. Then, state-owned companies take over to process and package everything. They've got these massive silos to hold strategic food reserves for emergencies, and when it's time to deploy, mobile field kitchens can roll in and serve thousands of hot meals in just hours. They're even starting to test out robots and AI to make the whole distribution process even faster.
So just think of it like a direct pipeline. The food is grown for the army, processed by state companies, stored for security, and then finally cooked up in these mobile units that are basically restaurants on wheels, right there in the middle of the action.
But what happens when you can't just set up a kitchen? Well, like other modern armies, China relies on MREs, meals ready to eat. But theirs are tailored with a local flavor. Lots of rice, noodles, and dried meat are common. Each one of these packs is designed to give a soldier enough calories and nutrients to keep them at peak performance for a full 24 hours, with no other support needed.
Okay, so let's go from the wide-open spaces of a land base to, well, probably the most extreme and confined environment you can imagine, a nuclear submarine hiding deep beneath the ocean.
Now the challenges here, they just shift dramatically. On land, you might get fresh supplies daily. In a submarine, you are sealed inside for 3 months, maybe more, with only what you brought with you. Space is an absolute premium, and the psychological pressure of being totally isolated, it's immense.
So how in the world do you feed over 100 crew members in these conditions? It all comes down to some incredible engineering. Every single spare inch is used for smart storage of dried, canned, and vacuum-sealed food. That nuclear reactor, it provides the power to desalinate seawater, which means they have an endless supply of fresh drinking water. The tiny kitchens use high-pressure cookers to whip up hot meals really fast. And for combat situations, they've got special, lightweight rations that can be heated up chemically, no flame required.
And this really gets to the human side of it all, which is so critical here. In that crushing isolation of a submarine patrol, food becomes so much more than just fuel. A hot, familiar meal, like a traditional bowl of noodles, it's a connection to home. It becomes this powerful tool for keeping morale high.
All right, from the depths of the ocean, let's head up into the skies. For pilots in the Air Force, nutrition is less about long-term storage and way more about precision. In this case, food is literally a tool for maintaining peak mental focus.
And the whole approach is highly specialized. It's totally tailored to the mission. A fighter pilot on a short, intense flight needs quick energy, so they might get high-energy bars or even electrolyte drinks fed to them right through tubes in their helmet. But for a bomber crew on a really long flight, it's all about endurance. They'll have access to a small area with canned goods, instant noodles, and hot drinks to stay sharp for hours and hours.
Because at 40,000 feet, the stakes just couldn't be any higher. There is absolutely zero margin for error. A tiny drop in blood sugar or a moment of fatigue could lead to a catastrophic mistake. So in this context, food isn't some luxury. It's a critical defense against losing focus when it matters most.
So, when we piece all of this together, the huge network on land, the life support system at sea, and the precision fueling in the air, we start to arrive at a really powerful conclusion. Food logistics is more than just support. It is, in and of itself, a silent weapon. At the end of the day, the ability to feed a massive army day in and day out in any environment you can think of, that is a fundamental pillar of national power. An army that eats well is an army that can endure. This whole capability ensures a force can stay effective right up to the very last moment, making it just as important as the tanks and missiles you see in those big military parades.
And this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. As nations are busy measuring their strength by counting warships and aircraft, maybe the deeper truth is that an army's real power is forged first in its kitchens. Is it possible that in modern warfare, the supply line is every bit as critical as the firing line?